It's Tynwald Day tomorrow, and a number of new Tynwald members will enjoy the very proud moment of sitting on Tynwald Hill for the first time. The final act of the outgoing Keys members last July was to elect Lawrence Skelly as president of Tynwald. So what is the significance of the outdoor sitting of Tynwald? What's actually involved in the ceremony? And is there any chance we'll resurrect settling disputes with sword fights? Will you be going to the Tynwald Fair? Is it just a good excuse for tea, cakes and a bit of a yarn, or does this 1,000-year-old institution hold a significant place in Manx hearts? Maybe both.
A massive day in terms of an honour to be president of Tynwald and be there on the hill in St John's in the Royal Chapel. So yes, it will be exceptionally special for me, but I think we'd all recognise what this means for everyone on the Isle of Man. The National Day, Tynwald Day, and the history and the heritage is behind it. So I think it is special for everyone on the island.
But for you personally, I mean, as a Manxman, why is Tynwald Day so special?
Well, first of all, in a position, I mean, there is no greater honour, you're right, as a Manxman. And secondly, it's funny because when you said we were going to do this programme, I was sort of thinking back to my early memories of Tynwald Day. And I remember as my parents taking me, like many parents did and do and still, which is great. And, they go to tell them a little bit about the history and how important this is, for the island. But it's also the fun at the fair, Tynwald Fair. I think as a young person you remember it, but you do remember the pageantry, and you do recognise that it is important to the island and politically important to the island. And the other thing was there was always international guests, whether they be royalty, whether it be other MPs, whether it be ambassadors, from other countries, etc. So it was always I guess a showcase, of what makes us different, that identity. But then when I was away, Phil, it was, I did join the North American Manx Association and sort of kept me Manx roots, and we had a local society in San Diego and a national organisation, and we did celebrate Tynwald Day. And I was fortunate enough to work for myself, so I always used to take it as a holiday, which worked out very well in America, having July the 4th, Independence Day in America, and then the next day off as well. But not everyone else appreciated that. But we did, with my cousins and those with, second, third generation Manx in America, would celebrate Tynwald Day. And in the recent times, just as we were moving back in the late 90s, streaming became available. So Manx Radio was great, if you could stream it, but streaming live video, and that was always a great joy. Couldn't always work it out with the time difference, but so we celebrated it in America, and of course then coming back to the island and doing what I do, have done for the last 10, 12 years now. It just is, it's got sort of a different meaning again, obviously, but the importance of it, nationally important, is very, very significant.
You're coming up for your first year in the post now. The very last thing the outgoing House of Keys does is elect a new president. So how has the year been?
Well, it's been a very interesting year, and it's, when people ask me the difference between the roles, and the way I describe it is it's a different responsibility, and therefore it's a different role, different responsibility. And the first thing you've got to do is detach yourself politically, because you become politically impartial. So you've got to be this parliamentarian purely, and that's the purpose of a presiding officer. And in layman's terms, the other way it was described as is a bit like a referee. You've got two different sides. You have government, you have backbenchers, and it's all about being fair. And of course there are standing orders, there are procedures, and you've got to be very familiar with those. You do have support from the clerks, etc. But it's important that everyone does get a fair crack at the whip. The parliamentary process is has been there for hundreds of years, 1,000 years plus, but it has evolved and it keeps on evolving. Standing orders, there are changes that occur all the time. So you've got to be on top of that, and you hope that that members respect each other, which I would say they do, and you want to have a healthy debate. We do have, I think, some sort of simple I guess standing orders here about timelines. I think in your time and when I was with you, and they tried to test some of these and limit them, and we still don't have those limits. Which is when Tynwald sits, it can sit for 3 days or longer if the members want, and that ensures that everyone gets that opportunity to have their say. And I think that is exceptionally valuable for our democracy, essentially, and of course, you've got the uniqueness of the two houses sitting together in Tynwald, which we always promote the Isle of Man in Tynwald, the longest continuous parliament in the world. But the tricameral is unique as well. And it is, I would suggest, work to the benefit of the island and the people. So what kind of years have been? It's been challenging, but it's been very rewarding as well. And you just jogged my memory again there, Phil, with when you and I and Joe and Tynwald Day and what you do. I was following you and Joe and typically
the blind leading the blind.
I led the wrong way, perhaps. Yes, indeed, or trying to wind me up from what I recall. Anyway, but no, I think we all recognised it. Especially we were all there together. In the Russian 3 bench at the time, which was happy memories.
It's fair to say that parliaments tend to be a bit of a slow burn, particularly at the start, don't they? And then the very last, so the first year, it's a relatively slow, very little seemingly on the agenda, and then they get to 1 year to go and suddenly realise that the time is almost up and 101 things are rushed through at the last minute. Is there any way that as president you can sort of wave your guiding hand over this and suggest that maybe a more measured approach so that there's a good amount of business throughout the whole session rather than it's all piling up to the end?
Yeah, it is a challenge, there's no doubt about it, and I think every parliament probably has the same challenge. One thing I would say that is a real benefit to us here is we have 5-year terms. So we always have this starting point where most parliaments work with party systems, so therefore they go in with a fairly straightforward mandate, therefore they can hit the ground running. We don't. We're mostly independents, therefore there has to be some consensus as to what that manifesto is going to be from the government. And then do bear in mind that the government here start off on a non-majority number. And that majority can dwindle, depending on membership in departments, and we've seen that being eroded. So it is quite challenging. But the fact we have 5 years, I think, is a benefit because most other parliaments are 4 years. Whereas they got that first year, and they have that settling time too, and then they have maybe, if they're lucky, 2 years, and then there's a backlog of moving things through. I think the other point there, well worth pointing out, Phil, is that when bills do come through, they don't die either, so they can continue if the new house, so deems it effectively. So they can come to the end, and if they don't get it finished, they can roll over, and we've seen that. I've obviously witnessed it, 2 sides of the coin, having been in government, last administration, then presiding, and seen that come back to the floor. And, a determination is made, whether it be a select committee or a bill and so forth. So yeah, it's difficult to get that measure. But in essence, the other point to well recognise is the finite resources. So we're very eager, aren't we, politicians, when we come in, we want things done. You bang the table, but moving legislation takes time. And you can be frustrated about that, but the process, I would suggest, works well. I've not seen any perfect legislation anyway, but the process of going through the House of Keys into Legislative Council, and sometimes that bounces back and forth, usually results in a better bit of legislation. Is it perfect? Maybe not, but then you can amend that at a later date. So there is a reason to have the checks and balances and the due diligence that goes into that, into a bill, and we've seen some fairly significant private members' bills, thinking last term with regards to the abortion bill, which took, I think, about 2.5 years to complete its course. But what ended up was a piece of legislation that, that was very well supported politically, because I think it had done the appropriate level of due diligence to get to that. And of course, we have some one significant private members bill started again here very recently. So it'll be interesting to see how the journey that takes. So I would suggest that the process works well. Can it work more efficiently? Yes, it probably can. But you always have competing priorities from departments, private members, etc. You're always vying for that very finite resource of legislators, which are quite rare beasts as well.
And I suppose as well, being fair on both the Keys members and the government, they do need to have a little bit of time to consider and plan what their future vision for the Isle of Man should look like.
It is, and when you got for example, when you have a new minister, new members come in to a department, first thing they've got to do is review what's already in hand. And they may agree with that, they may get the new council to agree with it, and then ask the new parliament to agree, but they may not, in which case you start from the beginning. And that's always shall we say, a risk, but that's politics, and across the world, you see, the week in politics is a long time, you see changes occur quite regularly, and so therefore you can have different points of view. But again, I would suggest, because the parliament and government is done by consensus, it tends to arrive at a point where it seems reasonable, shall we say, whatever that point actually is sides on.
You're listening to Agenda with the Honourable Lawrence Skelly MLC. So talking us through the actual ceremony and what happens on Tynwald Day and why it's important, I suppose, if we begin with, why is the open air sitting of Tynwald so important?
Well, first and foremost, it's history, it's heritage. It goes back, I think, on that site up to the 1400s, and our history of Tynwald goes back to the 9th century. So, it is important, and again, it's our identity. It's who we are here on the Isle of Man. But in terms of the parliamentary process of it, it's about promulgating those laws. So, in effect, it basically says what Parliament, Tynwald, is actually produced in the last parliamentary season. So the laws they've made. So they get promulgated, as we know, both in Manx and in English, and then they are captioned as well, which means they are signed by the two presiding officers, the President and the Speaker, in the chapel. And effectively, we make both the hill part Tynwald Court, and we make the chapel part of Tynwald Court, and you see the bar actually is made in both cases there. So that's the business part of it.
And just briefly, you're not going to get over captioning without me asking, have you been practicing with a feather quill?
I haven't, and there will be a feather quill there, as I'm just told. I've come back through the walkthrough, but there is also a normal, ballpoint pen, which I think is the norm today.
Right. No, I just remember Tony Brown spending hours practicing writing with a feather quill, because the Russian benches we used to sit next to the speaker in during the captioning ceremony.
Yes, and I can remember somebody being appointed to be the professional blotter too. Our old friend Richie Ronan, I think, did it in one occasion. So yes, it's so it is part of closing out the year's business effectively, and that is part of the ceremony.
And effectively, if the laws aren't promulgated from the Hill, they fall, as far as I understand.
Correct. You're absolutely right. So it is an important part of the actual process and the ceremony, and as is, of course, the petition. I know you did a piece with Dr. King, the Clerk of Tynwald, recently, who highlighted what the purpose is and how that process actually works. And again, this is a wonderful privilege, I think, and part of our history, our heritage, that you can present a petition. You just need to put it in the right order, then it gets referred to the committee, and that could come to the floor of Tynwald for a determination as an opinion or further action. So, but it is also a way of, I think Dr. King's summary of that was really helpful to understand the difference between that and judicial issues, for example, related to petitions. And
in terms of the various people that the public turning up to Tynwald Day that they'll see. I mean, obviously, they will see the members of the House of Keys who have tended to be wearing tails and top hats, but of course this time, more than ever, there'll be an awful lot more women who presumably won't be wearing top hats and tails.
No, and I think that is reflective of the diversity, that we've seen, which has been really significant. We've just had some parliamentarians over recently from a number of different jurisdictions these last couple of months, and when we highlight our diversity that we do have, not just gender but age as well, and let's not forget the backgrounds and even where they're born. It is really quite very representative, I think, of if you look at the census of the people of the Isle of Man. As being represented in the House of Keys and also Legislative Council. So that diversity is important, and I think that also promotes healthy debates, because you will have those different backgrounds, different ages and different genders, etc., which promotes different views. So therefore you tend to be much more productive and healthy debates. So yes, gender differences are greater than they've ever been, and yes, of course, and then you've got the members of the House of Keys in the Legislative Council. You have the Deemsters there, you've got the clergy there, you've got the captains of the parish there, you've got the local authorities chairs there. So, they're all there playing a part in Tynwald Day and the ceremony itself. And just a very, very proud day for everyone that participates.
Because effectively there are, I suppose, three elements of government on the island. There's the parliamentary bit, which is Keys, Legco and Tynwald, which is the two Keys and Legco coming together. You've got the clergy and you've got the judiciary, but you've also got the captains of the parish. So what's the role of a captain of the parish?
Well, again, that's another ancient tradition here on the island, and if anyone knows, it should be you, Phil, with your father there. But no, it's a great thing in terms of they also chair requisition meetings, which is very important, I think, in the general election. And you're always, again, you're looking for somebody of, I guess, stature, credibility, and impartiality. And captains, I know they're all the rural, and they all come from that type of stock, and we're very blessed, I think, with the captains we have got, and put in many years of service, for their parish and for their island that they all dearly love, of course. So we're very fortunate, but it is another part of the ancient tradition here on the island is having captains of the parish, and I think we've got a very, very good stock.
And of course, nowadays the captains don't have to turn up to Tynwald Day mounted on a fiery steed with several henchmen along with them to make up the guard for the Lord of Man.
No, now you are going back then, of course, isn't it? And it's interesting, really. Again, think of the history. What Tynwald was, and it was an assembly. Tynwald, Tyn thing, and that was about a place to settle disputes. And obviously, back hundreds of thousand years ago, that was probably done with violence. And progress has changed, hasn't it? And again, to get today those laws that have been made, and the first thing people ask about, what does a politician do? They make the law, they amend the law, they change the law for the benefit of the people they represent, and on that hill they basically tell the public what that law is in the open air, and that's what they've been doing for all these hundreds of years. You don't think settling disputes with sword fights is likely to catch on again? Well, you can. I would suggest you do come on Tynwald Day, because you can actually see in the Viking village down at Cooluree, which is a great enhancement to Tynwald Day, highlighting some of our heritage and so forth, and you may even see a mock sword fight there as well. But the sword estate, of course, as we know, is exceptionally important too in terms of a symbol for the Isle of Man, as you see that being carried on Tynwald Day, and of course in Tynwald here. But on Tynwald Tynwald Day, the public get to see this in the open air, and that dates back again to the Vikings, 12th century. And on the handle, if you get a chance of taking a photograph and seeing it, you'll see that was the very first recorded symbol of the three legs of the Isle of Man, which of course we all know is our national symbol.
And of course, one person who's fairly fundamental to a lot of this is the person who you, as president, you've sort of constitutionally stolen some of the clothes and baggage of the representative of the Crown. Effectively, the Lieutenant Governor is there as a representative of our constitutional monarch.
Yeah, it's good, a very good point, Phil, because you see, I guess, parliamentary and political constitutional evolvement that has occurred over the years, and the role of President of Tynwald and President of Legislative Council dates back to 1990 when Charlie Carouche was the very first president then, and so that role happened in the 80s really in terms of its establishment, and of course we did have there was also chairman of the Legislative Council prior to that, but the president's role is only since 1990, and that has assumed basically the effective role of what was the Lieutenant Governor at the time. So yes, the constitutional reform can happen, can occur over a period of time, and that has it's quite significant really. Over a relatively short period of time, that still continues and can continue as well. It's in the hands of the members.
Because effectively now the Lieutenant Governor only presides over Tynwald in the open air sitting. In all other circumstances, it is you as President of Tynwald.
That would be absolutely correct, Phil. So yes, it is the only occasion that the Lieutenant Governor presides over.
And after, you have the church service, you process to the hill, the laws are promulgated, process back to the church. The acts of Tynwald are then captioned, which is effectively, as you say, speaker and president signing, and then you as Tynwald members get a chance to enjoy the fun of the fair.
Indeed, and I think that this is, as we've seen with Tynwald Day, it has been enhanced, and there's quite a lot of activity in and around St. John's, and I strongly recommend, if you haven't been for many years, do come and visit St. John's. Bring your children, bring your grandchildren, and share this this wonderful site that is part of all our history and our heritage, and see that you can come, as I say, visit the Viking village. You can come and see the dancing. You can music, and there's actually a Tynwald Fest even in the evening if you want to come down. And the other point is the Manxies that come home. It's wonderful. It used to be the old homecoming tent, you may recall. I remember, of course, being living in America and seeing that. And Manxies will still, gravitate towards Tynwald Day if they, any of them has got history or heritage, because they want to witness and see, what it's all about. But what I would say, Tynwald Day is a day for everyone in the Isle of Man to feel proud and enjoy your day. It's your national day. Come and enjoy the tradition and the pomp and ceremony that is Tynwald Day and everything that is around there. But if you want to stay at home, you want to have a family party, and just enjoy your day, enjoy it. But always, always celebrate your history, your heritage, your Manxness.
Will you be exercising your ancient right to petition Tynwald tomorrow, or just enjoying a quiet day off with the family? Are you hopeful that our lawmakers will move up a gear next year in changing the legislative framework for the better, or are they right to drag their feet at the start of their term in office? Please get in touch with Phil Gorn at manxradio.com and let me know your thoughts and views on the programme. But for now, I'm Phil Gorn. Go to Mayo. Thanks for listening.